Shannon.
Hi, Cheryl.
What are we doing with you?
So, Hannah, perfect.
Are you oh, there we go.
Similar to Eastview, but a lot bigger. I don't know.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
Excellent.
now I can.
More
Good. And you can see Hannah. All right, perfect. I'll be right back.
Is that up near the new hospital complex in Hanover? It's out beyond, you go north, on the road going out of Hanover, there's a loop, and the Cold Weather Research Center, and Kendall is another half mile, 3/4 of a mile north of that. My wife's uncle was there. For 10, 12 years, and one.
Okay. Let's see, Arabella, there you are. So you're going to chair this evening.
I am. Oh, and it's 7 o'clock. Look at that. We have a quorum.
If you'd give me just a second to get my
No problem.
a roll call done, that would be great. Herb and Tom are here, Shannon, sure. Here.
Ross, you ready to get out in the field again?
Deborah. Huffaker. Shit.
Oh, actually, next 10 days looks like about 5 to 10 degrees warmer and.
Yeah.
But that's not really warm, right? But it's enough that I think we have some 50 degrees. 50 to 60. Oh, 70 degrees we had a month ago, right?
Where are we
So what is your limit for? What are you looking for on the limit for erosion? I don't have any open ground. We don't have any right now. Everything's either hay crop or pasture, or a combination of those. Yeah, but when I was doing row crops, I always had. Well, at the high school today, they were serving
Joanne?
with
Steve
water. They also have 5 weeks too. But
Jeremy.
where you
Great.
comes out of Florida. Yeah.
Lisa.
That's how it is. Even somebody with a greenhouse couldn't have it ready this time. No.
Jen.
So when I was in Ohio, my dad.
Okay, good. I think I've got everybody in, so thank you for waiting for me. Arabella, you want to welcome everybody and start us off?
Okay.
And actually, Arabella, I have one, I guess, brief announcement. Our speaker was on the Pels project, canceled on me. Actually, VTrans asked them to put it off until June because VTrans wanted to attend and couldn't attend tonight. So I'm afraid we're not going to do the Pels study until our June meeting. So I apologize for that.
Okay. I was going to call us to order and then let you explain that. But so we're called to order at 7:02 p.m. on April 9th. And the first item on the agenda is, excuse me, the minutes from the full commission meeting on the 12th of March. Would someone put forward a motion to approve?
Move to approve as presented.
Shannon, thanks.
I'll second. I'll second Arabella.
Jens takes it. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye or thumbs up or similar.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? All right. Second, I'll bring your attention to the minutes from the e-board meeting on the 26th of March, which are in your packet. If you have any questions about those, please ask one of the members of the e-board?
Actually, Arabella, they're not there, but they are up on the website.
Okay,
I did not get them into the package this week. I apologize, but they are up on the website so anybody can see them.
all right.
Arabella, can I ask a quick question then? Adam, are they in the packet or are they in minutes? Because I didn't see minutes listed. Would they be in the full package? Is that where they would be found?
No, they'd be in the minutes.
Oh, just by themselves. Okay.
Yeah, the minutes of and you have to look under e-board on the website, but you
Okay.
go to resources, agenda and minutes, and then look under e-board minutes and they're there.
Okay. Thank you.
So let's quickly move on to the treasurer's report. Adam,
I'm having a tough night, Arabella. I do not have one of these for you either. April and I asked April to do the preliminary budget this month, and she wasn't able to get both done. So I'd rather have, I wanted the budget discussion because we have to vote on that in June. So I asked her to prioritize that. So I will get financial reports to you, well, to the e-board at their next meeting, and then back to this board meeting. I'm not concerned about the financials, but April's working hard, and I need to get her some help.
okay, so will we cover the preliminary budget later or
Let's do it
later in
later.
the meeting today or? Okay.
Yes, please.
Then moving on to committee reports, Act 250, Section 248.
That committee did not meet.
Good. Energy Committee.
Yes, we did meet. What we did was we finished up all of the edits and input from all of the committee members with Jolien, and he now has the honorable task of trying to make sure that the tables and all of the little inserts are appropriately labeled and it looks logical in that way. And we had one more section in the appendix to give him some feedback on, which we will do at our next meeting this month. And then we're scheduled to present that regional plan update. Is that in June, Adam, or is it July? I don't remember.
Well, we talked about doing it in June.
Okay, in June.
But it may be too much for us to present both the energy plan and do the V-Trans Pels study. So
Okay.
let's play it by ear. We'll do one of them in June and one of them in July.
Okay, well, all I can say is that we will be ready on our end when the schedule allows for us to give you a presentation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, next, excuse me, next is local government.
Local government did not meet. However, we are scheduled to have a review and public hearing of Moncton's town plan and planning process on Tuesday, May 6th at 7 p.m.
And it's already after April 6th, so seems like May 6th is a long time away, but not really.
Not really.
Next is natural resources. I think our meeting was before the last full commission meeting. I don't think we've met. Anyone else on the committee can verify that? Okay, next is TAC.
TAC did not meet either, but in lieu of their meeting, they were asking people to go to the presentation on the Pell study at the American Legion in Virgins last Thursday.
And I was there. It was well attended. And I'm going to request that when we talk about the Pels, that they show all three routes, similar to what I saw for Route 17. It looks like you get a drone view of everything there. It was very helpful. And Jim Gish was there talking, so it was nice to see somebody who we'd seen from the top. So a very successful meeting as somebody from Middlebury who drove up to see it.
Thanks, Hugh.
Housing. Tim?
We just met like minutes ago,
Okay.
and we had a guest. Sia Armstrong joined us with Anna from the Addison Housing Works, and she had some data methodologies. Those linguistics are courtesy of Nick, who is helping me remember everything that he's names and what we discussed. But we were basically discussing 181 at our meeting, and the application of that as the rollout goes on here between now and the end of June. But I wanted to let you know that Anna might have some updates as well. Anna?
Well, we talked about the fact that the state has set targets for each of the regional planning commissions with the charge to them that they parse their targets into towns within their region's targets. So there are many ways to do that. And I guess it's Andrew LaRoe, one of the staff here, has taken a preliminary crack at it just based on the population percentages from the 2023 census. Sia Armstrong is working for us to look at a number of data points. For example, looking at the demographic categories of people, like people who are elderly and people who are families with children, and then looking at data trends over time to see not just what the 2023 data showed and plug in a percentage of the whole, but to look at something that the towns could look at that gave them more options for consideration for how they should set their housing targets with our RPC staff, which is, I think what Katie was saying, and Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's an iterative process between RPC staff and the towns at meetings where it is expected that more than just the planning commission will show up, planning commission members.
That's certainly the mapping process. Yes. As to how, we'll have to pick a methodology and apply it equally across the board. So it's harder to give other, I couldn't do one methodology in Starksboro and one methodology in Cornwall. We have to do it consistently. But we did say that we'd speak with Sia Armstrong and look at her methodology as well and see which one will work best. So we'll do that with the housing committee. So Katie and I will schedule a meeting with Sia in a little bit more than a week.
Great, thank you.
And I'm just going to add that Herb brought up just one point that some of these towns were, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong here, Anna, but basically my takeaway was that some of the housing stock was actually going down in number in some of these towns prior to these expectations being printed. So there's actually an upswing from the negative was my takeaway in a number of the towns.
Herb certainly said that. I took the minutes and that's what he said.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I don't know if it's going down, but the trend is sort of flattened. So we have more to make up, if you will, in terms of meeting some of the targets.
Ed? You need to unmute.
Ed, were you going to say something? Ed Payne?
Well, as soon as I get
There you go.
I got my microphone on. Problem part of the problem with housing is
You turned yourself off.
We can't hear you right now, Ed.
I think
Let-
we're gonna
Go
have
ahead,
to move
Arvilla.
on.
Yeah,
If you,
when he gets his microphone worked out, we can
yeah, we
ask
can
him to
come
speak
back to
again.
you, Ed. Any further reports from the housing committee, Shannon?
I know we're going to be talking about preliminary work plan later in the agenda, but the housing committee wants to maybe explore some housing elements that could be inserted into that work plan. So just to let everybody know. And so we're going to be exploring that in our next meeting as well.
Okay. Economic Development Committee? Any
We did
meeting?
not meet. We did not meet, but we will be meeting at before the end of April. And the Brownfields Committee is meeting on May 1st.
And
Great.
if Adam, if it's okay, I'm happy to provide a quick update
Great.
from ACRPC on our efforts.
That
If
would
that's
be great.
okay.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Just go ahead.
So just so folks are aware, and this is Alex from the Addison County Economic Development Corporation, Fred's replacement. We have been hard at work preparing really a process for developing the Regional Economic Development Strategy, or the REDS as we're calling it. This really is an extension of the SEDS that's more focused on Addison County. And this will serve as a formal update to the economy chapter of the regional plan. So it will serve that purpose for the RPC. It's also a plan that we'll use in our strategic planning and our annual operating strategy. So Joy, I'll actually be reaching out to you hopefully tomorrow on response to the email Adam sent today. I do have a presentation I've put together just on a compilation of both the SEDS, the former goals and objectives from the existing regional plan, as well as goals and objectives from our annual operating strategy. So have been hard at work at this, and am looking forward to starting that process of updating, well, creating the plan and updating that chapter of the regional plan with the Economic Development Committee. So we'll be looking forward to meeting with them at that May meeting and starting that process.
Great.
All right.
So on to old business then, a Maple broadband update, Steve?
Thanks, Arabella. So I wanted to take a couple minutes to kind of give you a little bit of background about why we're kind of spinning around here and not making what appears to be a lot of progress. To a large degree, we had high hopes because there was a bipartisan infrastructure bill that got passed in Washington several years ago. It's since turned into something called BEAD, which stands for Broadband Equity, Access, and Development. That was pretty near ready to go out to proposal phase. Maple Broadband was ready, it was and has been ready to issue a proposal when we had a change in administration in Washington, D.C., which led into decisions made by the Commerce Secretary, decided that the program that had been put into place was not technology neutral. That actually reintroduced Starlink, the satellite service that's owned by our friend Elon Musk. And so what that kind of from a long view perspective, originally Starlink wasn't included in the list of options because it wasn't consistent. The performance was not equal to what fiber provides. But because for what I would say, in my opinion, political concerns, decided to kind of change the rules. So what happened was, as a result of that, and we haven't seen the new rules set out, so we're still kind of in hold. But what we've learned is that that it's expected now that that the $229 million that has been initially allocated to Vermont out of that BEAD program was the Starlink share was originally about $4.1 billion. And now that Starlink can be in the running for that service, the share that's estimated for Starlink is now between 10 and $20 billion. So we're none too pleased about that. And a lot of people probably don't want to be cutting trees down so that they can get their Starlink service. The other thing that we recently discovered is that Starlink is already anticipating to do well with this program. Not only are they going to have more money to spend, more money of the countries to spend, but they're also going to optimize their service plan. So, for example, they're now going to institute rate caps. So a lot of the other services that are offered by broadband service provider are going to be kind of heaped on top of the plan that Starlink has already provided. So it's, from my perspective, pretty onerous, but it's going to get a lot of attention coming up shortly. So I wanted you to be aware of that. And then I wanted to give you a quick rundown on last report on number of connections. We currently have, as of end of March, 541 active subscribers. What's going to happen coming up later this month or beginning of the following month is we expect that there's some pent-up demand currently that's being held back because people out in their homes are receiving all their service via conduit, underground connections from the pole to the home. And when it gets cold, whatever's in those conduits gets frozen and nothing can be done. So as we're now into April, we are expecting to kick off work where we will attempt to free up capacity in those conduits and will allow us to add increase the magnitude of the frequency of our new subscribers. So we're hoping we'll be able to give you show you a little bit more aggressive growth on what we'll be doing there. And one personal thing, Maple Broadband has the same kind of program that ACRPC does right around this time of the year. We ask our current delegates and alternates to ask to be nominated by their town, so that we have kind of confirmed the support that we're receiving. I know the same thing Adam administers every year, and it maybe sometimes is easier than others, but we are coming up short. We're waiting on Ferrisburg, Lincoln, Middlebury, Moncton, Panton, Ripton, Virgins, Waltham, and Whiting, and we're waiting on Cornwall as well. So we're having our annual meeting come next month, and we're hoping we're going to have a better turnout on that. Questions?
It looks like Rich has his hand up.
Rich?
Or maybe not.
Anyone have any questions?
I can't see my hand up, so.
Oh.
I pushed.
Oh dear, it was my cursor. Hovering over your picture. I'm sorry. All right. Learn something new every day. Any other questions for Steve?
Steve, Hugh McLaughlin. I saw the video of the April 3rd testimony before that for Maple Broadband. Is that up on the Maple Broadband website, or can we make it up on the website? It was very informative to me, even if it is now somewhat out of date, given what's happened in the last week.
we do have, Hugh, we do have, one of our web pages does have listings of kind of the headlines and whatnot. I know that Ellie did distribute the URL for that testimony, I believe. And I'll reach out to her and see if there's a way we can get that posted up on the website, and perhaps we'll remind those folks who are already subscribing to our newsletter. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, just go to maplebroadband.net and sign up for it. And a lot of matters like that are provided to you when our newsletter comes out once a month. So one way or the other, Hugh, I think you'll get access to it, but I'll chase it down to make sure you and everyone else can get to it if they have the opportunity.
Well, I like it, and I'm recommending it to some people that have applied to Middlebury to join broadband, Maple Broadband. So I will send it to them.
Great.
Thank you, Steve. On to Act 181 outreach.
Okay. Let's see. So Act 181 is basically the Act 250 jurisdictional reform bill that passed the House last year, or it was passed into law last year. It changes jurisdiction in Act 250 into 3 tiers. Tier 1, 1A, 1B are around our villages. Tier 2 is most of our countryside and stays relatively the same. Tier 3 is conserved areas. It's yet to be defined, but that is also going on. They've started, the Tier 3 working committee will start up with its first meeting in April. As part of that, the regional planning commissions were charged with basically mapping or redoing their future land use maps to help the towns create their villages or recognize their existing villages so that they're a little longer than or a little larger than the state designation programs. Kind of uniformly name all of the land use areas that are out there, and then we will be looking at conservation areas as well. In order to redo our regional future land use map, we are headed out to every town in the county. We will get to every town by June. Our bottleneck is mapping. We've got one person that's really good at it. We've got a couple other that are pretty good at it, but we're asking Hannah to basically create 21 town maps before we put together a regional map. Then let's see, myself, Katie, Rebecca, and Danelle have divided up the towns. We will all be going out to each of your towns. We will get to each of your towns first, at least one time prior to June. We'll share with you basically a draft map that Hannah will have created based on the statewide methodology and based on basically Addison County Regional Planning Commission's current future land use map and each of our member municipalities' future land use map and or zoning map. We'll definitely look at the zoning maps too. So we will be out there creating that. Our goal is to make sure that we and all our member towns, member communities are on the same page with the future land use maps. Thus far, let's see, I'm going to try and share just a schedule with you. There we go. And I want this one. Can you all see that?
I just see a broad white line.
Nope, I can't see it.
Okay. Let me go back. So that here. Nope.
only a white line for me, Adam.
Yep, no, I get that, Stan. Oh, it says stop sharing. Your screen sharing is paused. And it's a white line.
Maybe stop sharing and try sharing again.
Well, stop sharing and try sharing again. Everybody back, share.
And we're still there.
And
Still
that-
having that white line there.
Looks like it. And I'm gonna hit share again.
Yay.
How about
Yeah.
now? Okay,
Make
great.
it big-
Can I move what?
Make it bigger.
Yes, I will make it bigger. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is our kind of our master schedule. You can see we have the towns on the left-hand column. We have the person that will be working with each of the towns in the next column. The priorities, basically, we had to create a way for Hannah to triage the maps, and largely it was, where are you in your planning process? So you can see basically different priorities for different towns. It's not that we love one of you more than another. It's that you are in different processes in your places in your planning process, and we needed to also create time for ourselves. So that's how we did it. You can see the map completion date is the next column, and then scheduled meetings. So basically, and your PC dates meetings, so when we can go out, your plan, and some other notes. So that's basically kind of the master plan. I can show you here. That's the same towns, same priorities. These are the links to the map sets that have already been completed. So you can see we've done basically the first 9 of them or so. So we're making good 10 of them. We've done almost half so far. Have been out to most of these towns where the map sets are done. I haven't been to Starksboro yet, but I have been to Middlebury and Moncton of my 5. So we will keep on working and getting out there and seeing your planning commissions and open meetings. Your planning commissions are welcome, and we hope they will invite citizens and whomever they want. And thus far, I think I can safely say that the changes that we are making are not very big from your existing future land use map or the existing regional future land use map. We are expanding your village areas, and we hope what that expansion will do will reflect the entire village area that you have, not just kind of your small downtown or village center. It'll include all the housing around it, and maybe even a little bit of extra area for new housing, because that's really one of the main things that this bill is about. So we will be going out to all of your towns. We hope to have a draft regional plan after talking with all of you or a regional map after talking with all of you by the end of June. And then we'll do some regional outreach over this summer. We'll get the tier 3 rules from the LURB. We'll look at those, probably bring it out to the towns one more time, and then hopefully submit a plan that we all agree on to the land use regulatory board in the fall, early winter or so. And that's with our goal of getting our complete plan done prior to July of next year. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Anna.
I don't think I understand. I know the housing targets are part of Act 181. I don't really understand how the housing targets are woven into or separate from the process of the mapping.
So the housing targets are largely aspirational. VHFA created them. Vermont Housing Finance Agency created them. The goal is that if we expand the village areas in most every town, So maybe I'll pull up a map. Let's see. I'll pull up, is that? Okay, Moncton. I pulled up Moncton. Can everybody see that? Okay. This is Moncton's current zoning map. This is our current future land use map in the plan. And this is what we are proposing. Moncton has these, but they haven't met on them. So it's got a big draft sign on it. So don't be telling them that you saw their map before I did or before they did. But anyway, if you can see the purple, the dark purple, that's their current village center designation. The pink all around that is how we are proposing to expand it. Basically based on the methodology and based on their plan and their zoning and on well, that's it. Largely based on their plan and their zoning and where we think they would like housing. So we've got a lot to talk with Moncton about in this draft, but if you can see, it really does expand the opportunities for housing in the village. If Moncton likes this and chooses to opt in, they would basically become a tier 1B town for the village area, automatically, assuming the land use review board, regulatory board approves this, or approves our final map. And then any housing development within this village area would be exempt from Act 250. And therefore the theory behind the bill, the law, is that it will make housing easier and less expensive to develop. And that's certainly true. We're not sure how much development it would drive to the village of Moncton in this case, given that they don't have water and sewer infrastructure, but it definitely provides an incentive for that particular area. What I'd like to see us do is tie the housing targets to our ability to develop a fair amount within these village areas. And then some if you look at the gold color on this map, that's the rural general. Those are largely housing lots. So more rural housing lots. And there'll certainly still be some rural housing growth in Addison County. So we'll add those together with the village and then basically come up with a total or try and meet the total or show the total for each town. At least for the first 5 years, so through 2030, the housing targets for Addison County in particular were not that large. The high was just below 2,000 spread over the entire county over 5 years. It's a significant bump to the roughly 14,000 housing units we currently have. So it's a big proportion of it, but it's not an overwhelming number, especially if you consider, places like Stonecrop and Middlebury that are already doing 250. So that's, more than a tenth of our regional total. So, like you said earlier in the meeting, Anna, we haven't developed our exact methodology, but I do believe the maps will kind of and will tie in to the methodology we develop.
Great.
Make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Are the green areas potential conservation areas?
Yes. So in Moncton here, the green areas are either basically large conserved parcels.
The dark green?
Excuse me, the dark green is what you're asking about. Okay.
My mistake.
Or there are some wetlands in Moncton as well, some pretty large wetlands complexes. So it's generally either large conserved forested parcels or larger wetlands are what those green areas come from. If I go back up, one of the conversations that we'll have with Moncton is about basically the hogback. So in their zoning, they have that basically all conserved. we'll see what they want to do. Hannah applied the methodology and that's what we came up with, but this is why we're going out to talk with the towns, so we know, you know, what do you want? Why? How should we amend this map to make it reflect the future land use that, in this case, the town of Moncton would like. I will say the teal green, so the medium green parcels, that is what I would call the working landscape. So the gold is kind of rural housing. The teal green, as opposed to the dark green, is the working landscape. So you can see I think you can see it's got a little dotted pattern over it. All of those parcels are in current use. So they're either in current use for forestry or they're in current use for agriculture. So since they're in current use, we have called them rural agriculture and forestry, because that's what the current use program really does. It's not completely perfect, but it's a good start for what we hope will be a productive conversation, in this case with the town of Moncton. Herb.
I'm just trying to, am I on mute or not?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, so I was wondering, maybe you just said that, but are any of those dark green areas currently land that is available for housing according to the current Moncton plan? I'm just curious.
You could probably develop a house on some of those or some portion of those parcels under Moncton zoning. So, you know, this map does not exactly match. Oop, let me go up. Come on. Moncton zoning map. See, they have different conservation areas, again, in green. Here, they also have some, if you look at the cross-hatched areas, those are basically, it's a ridgeline overlay district where they do not generally allow housing. Some of those areas correspond with others. If you look at the blue areas, those are floodplains. Or flood hazard overlay district, you'd have a hard time developing there under Moncton's current zoning. But if you look, you know, their village center is that very small red area in the right above the pond, or right just to the right of the pond. So
yeah, thanks a lot. So you're going to be sending out a schedule for when you're going to meet with the towns, right, Adam?
Yes.
Yeah, yep. that'd be great. I'd like to somehow be involved. I'd like to know what the schedule is. That'd be great, so that I might attend.
Okay, great. Moncton will be May 6th. Moncton will be May 6th.
Super.
I'll get you a schedule.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Adam.
Adam, I've got a question, if you can hear me.
Yes, Joya, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't see there is a hand button down here for me to use. Otherwise, I would have used it. So I apologize. I guess I'm looking at these maps and I'm seeing what your methodology is, but I'm wondering why the only thing, I mean, perhaps this is the only thing you are looking at is housing. And when I see this, I see an opportunity to look at natural resources and housing in the big picture and making sure that they're connective tissues through all of them, right? To self-support each other, the natural resources and the human resources. So I guess I don't see any of like the west side of the lake, for example, there. That is I don't think there's any development on that below the school. But I would think that protecting those areas that would connect to the watershed of the lake, which already has, you know, problems with too much phosphorus in it, that it would exacerbate that. So I guess obviously I don't live in Moncton, but I'm just curious that if the methodology, we're losing an opportunity here, I guess is what I'm saying. And does that resonate with anyone?
So Joy, I'm happy to try and answer your question, and then anybody else is also welcome to kick in. And I don't want to get too deep into Moncton's maps because again, it's a draft, and we haven't had this conversation with Moncton themselves. But let's see, the legislation basically as passed had both it wanted to expand housing in a village area. That's shown in pink. That's Moncton's village area. It is right next to the Moncton Pond. You're absolutely correct. And then it also wanted to create a tier 3 area where perhaps Act 250 will become more strenuous. That will be correlated with, but not exact. It hasn't been created. The rules for it haven't been created yet, so I can't map that yet. So it's not on here. It will correlate with the dark green areas. And again, I showed you some other places where Moncton might want to do some more conversation based on their zoning. Moncton, you can see, has a fair amount of natural resource protection areas between its ridge overlay district and its flood overlay district.
Actually, that parcel that I was talking about is actually designated, and I guess so. It does well. Obviously, you haven't had the discussion with them, but I guess I'm wondering whether there are more things that can be done with this massaged at all, because that would seem like, even going from what they have as their interests, it doesn't seem to reflect that in your new map.
So I guess I'd say, let us have the conversation with Moncton, and we're going to bring all of the regional plan map back to you all. You all get to approve it, and I'll get to comment on it, and let's get a little further along in the drafting process, and then we'll have this discussion again and see where we go.
And if I can just comment based on my experience with Ferrisburg, the process of developing these zoning maps is long and broadly based. And like in our case, the Conservation Commission is strongly involved in making sure that our zoning maps protect natural resources. And I think that's true for most towns.
Okay. Tom wants me to reshare the map. I think he has another question.
Okay.
Can you do it without the map, or do you need it to make sense to everyone?
Well, I wanted to look at it partly because one thing that I noticed was that Moncton has 2 villages which show up on their zoning map, but only one of them, the current layout of it, shows up on this map.
South Moncton.
The Moncton Borough village, which is right at the junction with Hollow Road there.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Doesn't show up on the draft map. But what I was curious about, I'm basically asking Joy's question maybe a slightly different way, which is, there's a lot of competing interest in some of these existing village areas, and especially as those get expanded. And and I know that this is a process that hasn't been fully developed or delineated yet, but I'm assuming that there will be lots of opportunity for the town to engage in the actual delineation of those expanded village areas, just given that they would presumably know what are the best resources, soils, other natural competing interests, or whatever.
The answer is yes, and that's why we're going out to the towns.
Okay.
So we absolutely want their input. At the end of the day, it's our map, it's our future land use map. But in a perfect world, we want to get to a place where our map and the town's maps are really the same thing, and we're working towards the same thing. So yeah, we've got a lot of conversations to have with a lot of different towns over the next, well, probably 6 months. Or we're going to get all our first ones done by the end of June.
So Adam, it's
Yep.
my understanding that every 8 years, towns have to redraft their zoning or planning. At least that was what was presented last night at the select board at Middlebury.
Correct. Every 8 years, the towns need to redraft their plan.
Okay.
So this will be the first iteration of probably many.
But they don't necessarily, I mean, this year they probably will, but in general, you don't necessarily need to change your zoning every 8 years. But
That's
your
correct. You
updated
do not.
plan, and if the update of the plan results in a change of zoning, you would do that, but it doesn't necessarily result in a change of zoning.
You're absolutely right, Arabella.
I have something I would like to ask about, and it has to do with a comment that I heard from a townsperson when I was there at a meeting, and we were talking about whether or not our town wanted to name another or apply for a second village center. And the comment came up, well, how can you do that? Because it's private property, which got me to thinking that I don't know whether people understand what the purpose of zoning is. It isn't like taking over somebody's land against their will. It isn't like, I mean, is that part of what is going to happen when you talk to them about the tier system? That
so
it's in the context of what is possible, not what you have to do, or I don't know. I think a lot of people misunderstand.
So the future land use plans basically are the plans, not necessarily the zoning. This process is not going to change anybody's zoning. Towns can change their zoning after they go through this planning process if they choose to, but this process itself will not require any town to change their zoning. So that's one thing as far as zoning is concerned. The plan is largely aspirational, but for these purposes, for Act 250 purposes, it's also used for regulation. So we will create a regional land use plan, future land use plan, again, based on our conversations with all the municipalities. That regional land use plan will identify village areas, rural areas, conservation areas, and there are 10 different categories. So I'm not going to go through them all, but it'll identify those places. Depending upon where those places, they will either be in tier 1, A and B, 2 or 3 in Act 250. Tier 1, A and B, limit Act 250 jurisdiction for housing. So you can get more houses without having to get an Act 250 permit. And I'd say to think of that as your village plus maybe some on the outside for housing. And your town will get to talk to us and tell us where they want that to be. Right. So we'll have that conversation with Moncton about around the pond, I imagine. Tier 2, Act 250 jurisdiction won't change. And that's most of the region. So if we look on the future land use map, just as an example, the green, the teal green, and the gold will be tier 2. They'll be subject to the same Act 250 jurisdiction as they are today. Okay. The dark green will correlate with the yet to be created tier 3 area, which may increase Act 250 jurisdiction in those areas, in those conservation areas. So it will have some regulatory effect.
This isn't really my hesitation. I'm just asking if you're planning to address that private property and how it relates to this process when you go out, especially if there are a lot of people there.
So, I mean, these Act 250 as regulations impacts private property, as does local zoning. So in this case, with these plans in the Act 250 process, you know, generally the villages are allowed, or they're loosening the regulations, basically allowing more housing, and I would tell you probably making the property more valuable. Where in the conservation areas, if in the tier, what becomes tier 3 areas, we don't know what it will be yet. They are going to be impacting, they may change Act 250 jurisdiction in that area as well. I'm not sure. It would become more restrictive, harder to develop for more things.
It's not going to force anybody to sell their property for
Right.
eminent domain, anything like that. It may, in some areas, there may be developers knocking on your door.
Like I
saying,
said,
"Would you
it's
like
not
to
my
sell?"
issue. I understand what you're saying. I'm just wondering if you plan on explaining that clearly to people.
I tried. How'd I do?
You did a great job.
You did well. It was long, but
Okay.
I think there are going to be people who are going to be throwing something into the punch bowl because they don't like the idea of somebody at the state level. It doesn't matter whether their legislators voted for it or not, telling them what they're going to superimpose something on them, and a map kind of brings that to mind.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it.
Yep. Can I stop sharing this map? Does anybody else have any other questions, comments? Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
It's really helpful.
I have a question, or a quick question and a quick comment. Just sort of following up on, I thought something that Joya touched on, and that is these dark green areas, which are proposed to a first draft of basically tier 3. I had thought one of the objectives in the legislation was connectivity of wildlife corridors, and I'm not seeing anything that looks like there's an attempt here to do that. Now, I realize there are a lot of constraints, but I may be wrong, but I thought that was one thing Joy was looking at. And the second thing is, I'm just gobsmacked to see that the new proposed village area includes a flood erosion hazard zone on the whole west side of Moncton Pond.
Okay, so it's a draft based on the methodology. We haven't talked with Moncton about it. You are absolutely correct about the forest blocks and habitat corridors. They are, the tier 3 rules aren't created yet, so we haven't done anything to reflect them here because I don't know what they're going to be. So you're not seeing that side necessarily yet. And let's see. Well, let us have a conversation with Moncton and see what they have to say.
Steve's smiling.
Yeah, I just thank you for everybody who wants to weigh in on how Moncton's doing and how we're doing in terms of protecting our natural resources and stuff. We do have some pretty tight regulations regarding the pond, especially, and there's a bunch of conserved land that's not shown on that map. And as Adam says, you know, there's a conversation to be had.
Okay.
Shall
Thank
we
you.
move on to the nominating committee? Or,
Yes, please.
so do we have a report from the nominating committee? I don't actually
I,
remember who. did it
I
besides-
guess, as
Yeah.
chair, that's on me.
Oh.
And we do, finally have a resolution for a nominated slate, which we, settled on in a combination of ranked choice voting and consensus. We are proposing for, Chair Shannon Haggett, Vice Chair, Joe Andriano, who is nominally currently chair and has had some health issues, but has said that he's willing to stay on as vice chair and see if that improves, and maybe he'll get a chance to do a little more of what he intended. Tim Davis for treasurer, Cheryl Brinkman, secretary, and Arabella staying on at large. For new members at large, Steve Pilcher and Harvey Smith.
We don't have a vote. I know we don't have a vote.
No, we do not have a vote. But
discussion?
we can take nominations from the floor if anybody else would. So first, thank you to the nominating committee for proposing the slate. And thank you for those of you that are willing to serve on the executive board. We can take nominations from the floor if someone would like to throw their hat in the ring against the slate of officers proposed. We can do that either. You are welcome to do that either at this meeting or at the annual meeting in May, which is when we will vote on basically the slate of officers. So are there any nominations from the floor?
Question, just out of curiosity, if there was a nomination, how would the vote be handled? Would everybody have to vote on each person or something? How, instead of a slate?
You know, it's an excellent question, and it hasn't happened a lot, Ross. But I think the person who was nominated from the floor would, if they wanted a specific office, they would say what that office was, and we would have a contested election for that office. If they wanted to be a member at large, then basically we'd have 4 people running for 3 slots. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Can I also say that as the current treasurer, I am super happy that Tim has agreed to be the new treasurer, because he really has a better grasp at the financials than I do. I was willing to put my finger in that hole in the dam, but I'm very excited that Tim is going to be treasurer for the next coming year. So thanks, Tim.
But that was a proposal, my friend. But I'm happy to do it. But yes.
Proposal, Tim. I love it.
This was news. This was a news flash to me as well.
Me as secretary as well, but I'm fine.
Okay.
That's cool.
It's mine.
I like the suggested switch around. It's perfect. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you all for being willing to serve.
Is attempted flattery part of this nomination process?
We love you too, Tom.
Okay, so moving on through the agenda, next would be the small grants.
Yep. So again, for going back to the nominating committee for 1 second, we'll propose the slate again at the annual meeting. People will have the ability to nominate from the floor if they want, and we will have our vote on the slate of officers at our annual meeting and on May 14th. Okay, so sorry, moving on to the small grants program. let's see, as you may recall, last year, we had some extra money in our budget and we decided to create a small grants program, which we gave out to, I think we gave out to 7 different municipalities for different types of planning projects. So as an example, Virgins and Panton both got it and used it for basically some survey work around their town boundary lines. Moncton used it for some survey work in the town forest. And there are a number of other things. When Ross saw our financials I think at the last meeting, he wondered whether or not there was an opportunity with some of that money to create that program again. We told him I told him that I'd bring it to the executive board and they would consider it, and we'd get back to him, all of you, at this meeting. I will speak on behalf of the executive board and say that at their last meeting, they were not comfortable creating a small grants program at this time for a couple of reasons. One, I told them that I thought that number in the financials was inflated because of a couple of things, because of some of the prepaids and because of a timing issue where we got paid but hadn't paid a relatively big bill to a consultant. And therefore, while it was accurate as of the date it was printed, it was not, we didn't have all that cash on hand. So it wasn't necessarily as accurate. So, and then the other thing is that right now we kind of live in uncertain times for the future going forward for certainly our federal grants, and I imagine that they imagine that may ripple down to the state grants as well. So I think it's fair to say, and again, anybody on the executive board can speak to me, but we chose not to do it right now. I really want to. I don't think there's as much money. I think we're doing okay, but I don't think there's as much money in the budget as the statements that you saw reflected. And I know, in particular, our emergency management money, so the money that we get through FEMA, is probably going to go away. I think because for those two reasons, primarily, I think the board felt that we probably shouldn't do it at this time, but we could look at it again when we're more certain of both those things. Did I say that all right on your behalf, executive board? Anything anybody wants to add? Shannon?
I was just going to jump in and say, yeah, you nailed it. It's not off the table. We still think it's a good idea, but we're just apprehensive to do it right now and commit ourselves to that. But I think, as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, that may change. Our outlook may be different. But for now, we're on hold.
Okay, Ross? Okay, great.
Under new business, the annual mailing to municipalities and appointments to RPC and TAC.
Okay, so just as Steve mentioned earlier, Steve Huffaker mentioned earlier, it is the time of year when we ask you all to be considered for reappointment by your select boards for our next fiscal year, which starts July 1st. We will be sending out a mailing to your town before the end of the month, basically asking them to appoint delegates, reappoint delegates. We'd ask all of you to speak with your towns if you're interested in being reappointed and come back and join us again. So for both the RPC and the TAC, and that's largely what that business is about.
Okay. Any questions or preliminary work plan and budget discussion for FY 2026?
Okay, and I'm going to share my screen again. And I know I'm not there yet.
All that the broad white light of
You can't see that. You just see a white line?
Yeah.
Again?
Right.
Okay.
It's the eye test chart again.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Go here. Go here. Oh, I see that white line again. Share, but this should work. Can all of you see the budget?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I need to make that a little bigger. Here. Okay, so this is my first cut at the budget. It probably will change. The things that are highlighted in yellow are basically things that I know I need to ask either my staff about or reach out to basically the grantors, the granting agencies. So this is, I like to work from the budget as opposed to the work plan. It's just it's more succinct. But I will do my best to translate the alphabet soup on the left side for you. DHCD is the Department of Housing and Community Development. For our general program, that's basically enables us to do any type of planning work. So if you look at the statutes, they enable us to do almost any type of planning work. That's what we use our DHCD money for. That reflects governor's proposed budget for next year, which is a 3% increase from last year. DHCD, again, Department of Housing and Community Development, which is where that money comes from. It passes through the Department of Housing and Community Development. We had an addition last year. We don't have it this year. We had a housing navigator program that we did the ADU brochure and did some outreach for ADUs. So we've helped a number of people in Addison County create ADUs. We'll still have the brochure on our website. We'll still help people, but I do not have any specific housing navigator money this year. We will use some of our DHCD planning money to backfill there. Dues are level funded from last year, so they'll stay at $45,000. Technical assistance, MPG, municipal planning grant contracts. These are where we work for individual municipalities on their plans, their regulations, their subdivision regulations. We are doing the 181 work out of the DHCD general fund, so the 524. So we're not charging towns for that, but if we do work with towns, and we had a number of you put in municipal planning grants this year for, again, either other town plan work or zoning work or subdivision work or things of that nature. That's what that line item reflects. The charge point is are the charging stations on the building. Actually, they're generating about $250 a month. So, you know, there are some expenses that go with that, with the energy or with the electricity, but they're doing okay. The Lamoille Health Equity Grant was a grant that Ron was actually helping us work on in Bristol. That got cut this year. That's part of the money that did not come through the department, got cut at the Department of Health and got cut to us. I expect we may still do that project, Ron, but and finish it up because we were pretty close. But do it under our DHCD program money as well. We still have $20,000 to support accessory dwellings from St. Stephen's Church. We basically passed that through. MTAP money, most of that money passes through, in this case, to the town of Salisbury, where they're redoing their town hall, and we're basically administering that grant. So 3,000 of what was 100,000 is ours. It goes on through next year. Climate pollution reduction grant. This is one, it's in yellow. It's a relatively small grant. Comes through NRCP, Northwest Regional Planning Commission. They're the the main grantor for all of the RPCs. We're a subrecipient of theirs. That money may or may not still be around. So that's why it is in yellow. Water supply system aid. We are the main contractor for the Vermont Bond Bank. This is a new grant that we've gotten. We will be distributing a lot of this to other regional planning commissions. So it's a $500,000 grant over the course of 3 years. It's for each of the regional planning commissions to give assistance, administrative assistance, mapping assistance, other things to water systems within their region. So we'll be reaching out to all our water systems and seeing what they need, how we might help them, and use that money to help them. Let's see, transportation planning, TPI is our transportation planning program. We get that money through VTrans. The other transportation items here, so Weybridge Municipal Planning Manager, Weybridge slope failure, grants and aid, sidewalks here, relatively small grants where we're helping our member municipalities develop some infrastructure. The CCRPC RAISE grant, we are a subrecipient of a RAISE transportation-oriented development grant. We're working with Middlebury, Vergennes, and Ferrisburg. And this is only our portion of it. They get grant money directly, but this is our administrative portion of it. We'll be doing that through this year. Let's see, moving on to natural resources, we have a general tactical basin plan, TBP, tactical basin plan that we get through Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, who's the main contractor. We're a subcontractor. This basically funds our water quality, most of our general water quality work through the year. You can see the elephant in the room is this clean water service provider money. We get another $1 million of clean water service provider money for this fiscal year. Mike is running that program for us with the support of Danelle. We are, always looking for water quality projects to bring to our Basin Water Quality Council, which Arabella chairs and Joya sits on, basically to reduce phosphorus in the Otter Creek Basin. Moving down a little bit, we've got some money through Lamoille County. They're the main contractor. We're the sub. FEMA is redoing the floodplain maps in Addison County. They've actually just released them this week. So this is for us to do outreach to each of the towns, let them know there are new floodplain maps out there. There are some, I guess I'll say, relatively significant changes. If you look at any town, you will notice changes, especially up smaller streams that weren't necessarily mapped in previous iterations. So that's what that money is for.
Where can we find those maps? Are they on the website or anything?
So they're still draft. FEMA has asked us not to release them yet. If you wanted to talk with Andrew, I'm sure he could show them to you in some form or another. But we will be releasing them as we bring them out. With that
6-month time frame, or even longer than that?
Before they're approved, it's even longer than that.
Okay.
Before they're approved by FEMA, it's even longer than that. I do not, probably closer to a year.
Okay.
That's if FEMA continues to exist.
There's some uncertainty there. Yep. Our EPA Brownfields grant, that was a $500,000 3-year grant. We estimated we'll spend about $100,000 this year. The Moose Lamoo Master Plan, basically, we are doing master planning for the Moose Lamoo National Recreation Area. That's what we expect we will spend on that this year. The Middlebury College Master Plan was a big project this year. I don't expect it's going to extend into next year. And as soon as they approve it, I'll have Hannah come in and present that to you because it was a pretty interesting land use project. EMPG, Emergency Management Planning Grant. This is emergency management money. Again, this one's in yellow because we already talked about the issues with FEMA and whether or not it will come through. We've been doing a lot of local hazard mitigation plans for different communities. This 25,000 is for Cornwall, Bridport, New Haven. There's some questions as to whether that program will go forward. The $50,000 for the Act 172 Municipal Buildings Weatherization Program. This is the MERP program. This is the program that we are doing with all of your municipal buildings, basically weatherizing and making them more energy efficient. Gets us to a total budget of total revenue of about $2,500,000. And again, this is going to change a little bit. This is a first cut. I will bring the final budget to you all in June. The e-board will look at it, a couple of times between now and then. It'll look at it at its April meeting, its May meeting. I'll bring you the final budget for us to look at our June meeting. But expenditures, you can see building expenditures, rent, rubbish removal, repairs, general office program, accounting, advertising, insurance, legal, miscellaneous, postage, copy machine, telephones, conferences, etc. Software subscriptions. I do want to stop here for a second. At its last meeting, I presented the executive board with a proposal to increase our IT and cybersecurity awareness. We've as we've grown, we've kind of cobbled it together and done things in-house mostly, which has taken a lot of either Hannah or Rebecca's time. Next year, basically, I want to get into a place where we're hiring out some of our IT issues, and we've got real support for cybersecurity issues, because right now we're relying on, in this case, Google, which isn't necessarily the best system. So we're going to do a lot of work there. Website maintenance, just a little, I've got to check that number with Rebecca. Grant expenses. So in the revenue, we had a number of different grants. Some of those grants have expenses that are associated with them. So for example, the water supply system aid that I talked to you about, we reserved as VAPTA basically $50,000 for software and basically either accounting or engineering consultants. So if we're working with a water system, they don't have a good accounting system. Perhaps we can buy an accounting system, get them into that accounting system, help their operations that way. So we've reserved some money for basically technical assistance there. And that's a big grant expense. Most of the others are much smaller. It can be mileage, it can be printing, it can be other things. It can be consultants, or it can be equipment for transportation. We're going to have to do a lot more road counts next year for VTrans. So, but we've got some money in there for equipment for that. So grants, capital budgets, just I've got money for this room in there this year. Salaries is the biggest part of our budget. And then basically with salaries, you get unemployment comp, you get employee health insurance, life insurance, etc. So that's significant. Big part of our budget is your people that work here. And then in addition to expenses, a lot of different programs have consultants. We hire consultants to go out and work largely with your towns. A lot of this is within VTrans. Again, the water supply system, that 144 is going to all the other RPCs that will be consulting with their water systems. So we're the main contractor. We'll have them as subs. They're listed here as consultants. Transportation. Yep.
Does yellow mean that it's unsure?
I haven't signed that grant with the with the bond bank has the contract, but they haven't signed it yet. So yes is kind of the answer. I'm pretty positive of that number, assuming we get the whole grant, but in that particular case, so some of it means I have questions about it is what it means. Some of them, I don't know if the grant funding is coming. Some of it, I have to consult with some people. So it's not generally all bad. The yellow isn't all bad.
Okay.
Steve Pilcher has his hand up.
Steve.
Adam, I wondered about the clean water service provider piece. I mean, it's a huge chunk of our budget. It was originally an EPA directed fund. I mean, as I understand it, that's what started the whole ball rolling in terms of decreasing the phosphorus in the lake. To what extent would you guess that it's on the block, or that we might run into problems with it?
Yeah, and most of that money passes through. So if you see the 900, can you see my cursor?
Sure.
That's basically consultants. That's where we're going to pass through the clean water service provider money. Actually, most of the clean water service provider money is state money. So you're right. The Clean Water Act was mandated by the EPA to clean up Lake Champlain, but most of the money to do it is actually state money. So I think it's still a priority for the state and relatively secure.
Thank you.
At least for this next year. Most of our brownfields money passes through. So I had 100,000 up in revenue. We're going to pass most of that on to the people actually doing the tests of the brownfields. AmeriCorps host. That's the money that we use for our AmeriCorps person. I add those all together, I get $2,448,000. The revenue was $2 million, a little more than that. So I was pleased that on my first cut of the budget, we actually came out in the black. So it was 2.5 million. Expenses are about 2.4 million. We've got about $70,000 in contingency. Again, it'll change a little bit as the legislature finalizes the budget numbers that we're getting from all the agencies, and I answer a lot of the questions in yellow. But that's largely our program for next year. Hugh.
We had talked about a program where towns could share a resource. Are there any expenses in maintaining that program and other things, or is everything passed through to the town?
By statute, basically everything. If we do a specific service, say for 2 towns, and we've been trying to put together a zoning administrator for a bunch of towns, but it has not come together. But if we do a specific program for just 2 towns, by statute, those towns have to pay for the service. It can't come out of our general fund.
Okay, I didn't know if there was any administrative overhead besides
it would be charged,
arranging salaries and things like that, which would come definitely out of towns. Okay.
Yep. I'm gonna stop sharing. Does anybody else have any questions?
Herb?
Yeah, thanks very much, Adam. And I think I getting a bit of a clearer picture of everything. I think Tim alluded at, or maybe it was Shannon, I can't remember, alluded at the beginning of the meeting that the housing committee was, sort of kicking around, what the work plan might be in terms of housing. And I'm just wondering how that dovetails with what you just presented around the budget. I know you got the Act 181 work. If I'm just speculating, but if the housing committee wanted to see if we can make some progress on taking the the targets, the housing targets, and turning them into recommendations for town. I guess the question would be, do we have the wherewithal to do that? And, is that something that we need to consider in terms of an actual work plan?
So the answer is we will absolutely address that as part of the 181 work, and it will be funded through DHCD. So the first $500,000 in the revenue line. So yes, we will look to do that with you this year. A lot of our other housing work, I talked a little bit about it, ADUs in St. Stephen's. I talked a little bit about the municipal planning grants that we do with municipalities for their regulations primarily, which can aid housing construction. So I think that's where we'll do housing, but you, the housing committee, are absolutely invited to look at the regional plan. We have a number of basically goals, objectives, actions in there. And if you want to prompt us to do any of those, please, speak with Katie and we'll find a way. We've said we were going to do them in the plan, and we should do what we say we're going to do.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Maybe the next meeting of the housing committee, we can noodle on it a little bit.
Great.
Anna?
I had a question about the infrastructure bill. If, that to help towns get water and sewer infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought a little bit about what to do to help implement a planning function for those towns to take advantage of that program?
So
or those funds?
Some of the water system work that I talked about that we have funding to do, I think we'll be able to kind of steer in that direction. So for the water system side, yes. And on the wastewater side, if towns need assistance, we can do that planning work out of the DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development Planning. So yes, we can do that.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Ron?
In Vermont, there's a real healthcare crisis going on, mostly which is influencing so many things: education, housing, etc. A lot of the work coming out of the state is focusing on cost containment within our healthcare system. It really should be kind of a 50-50 split of cost containment plus efforts to improve health. We're not going to get out of this mess just by trying to control healthcare costs. We've got to address health improvement. It would seem to me like planning commissions can play a role in health improvement. Is there any conversation going on at the state on how planning commissions can play a larger role in health improvement?
So I guess I'd say in the transportation planning portion of the work that we do, there's certainly, discussions of that around sidewalks and bike bed and things of that nature. Some of the effort to focus housing in villages is kind of tied to that walkability factor. But overall, there is not a big discussion. There are a lot of players in the healthcare area, and we've dipped our toe in on the edges with the health equity grant and things, but it's generally not something we've done a lot of. That's recreation wise, we have also kind of, so if you think of infrastructure that might support healthy activities, we have, but not necessarily human services, social behavior.
Yeah, in response to, it was a great comment around the healthcare issues, and I'm not sure that folks are looking to regional planning commissions directly, but I think there is an acknowledgement that housing in its extreme with homelessness is definitely one of the social determinants of health. And so there's a lot of discussion about that. And so that dovetails, I think, into the housing issues and trying to improve health through, working away, chipping away at some of the housing issues, because we know that affects people's overall health.
Shall we move on to the annual meeting now?
Yeah, great. So I am pleased to announce our annual meeting will be May 14th. It will run from about 5 to about 8:30. So it's a dinner, it's a social hour. It's an opportunity, it's a thank you to all of you. You're all welcome to bring a guest. We generally, let's see, our speaker for the evening will be Ethan Tapper. He's the author of How to Love a Forest. He's the former Chittenden County forester. So we will talk a little bit about forests in Vermont, or he will talk to us a little bit about, and he's a good speaker. So that should be interesting. We will be at the Town Hall Theater in their new space. So their new upstairs space, which should be great. It kind of overlooks the river in the town of Middlebury. And our dinner will be catered through the Crooked Ladle of Middlebury. So I hope it'll be really a nice event and hope to see all of you there. I will have staff there for you all to interact with as well. Please bring your guests, and I hope it'll be a really fun evening for all of you.
Great. Thank you for getting all of that sorted out, Adam. And the Bertha Hansen Award.
Good, thank you, Arabella. That's right. You all picked the Bertha Hansen Award. And it's named after Bertha Hansen. That was a longtime delegate from the town of Starksboro. Basically, it's you all recognizing one of your peers for outstanding work. So Ross won it last year. There are a lot of faces in the room that have won it in years prior. But if any of you have someone that you think has done a really nice job for the commission and you would like to nominate them for this year, please speak with either me or any member of the executive board. The executive board will take your nominations and pick a winner for this year to announce at the annual meeting. They'll do that at their meeting at the end of this month, which, let's see, today's the...
It should be the 23rd, Adam. It should be the 23rd.
23rd. Okay, thank you. So please get your ideas to the e-board by before the 23rd.
All right, any other new business or members' concerns or information? Hearing none, how about a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, Ed has his hand up.
Oh, sorry. I don't see, there.
We were talking about the housing and stuff. The program that Adam talked about to us as landlords didn't give any considerations about deadbeats and getting for the landowner, and we had to basically had to take deadbeats, and the new requirements that heat in all the upstairs bedrooms in an old farmhouse where we lived in. Nobody has ever had heat in the upstairs house, and that house was built in the 1800s. We lived there perfectly fine and everything, but everything is for the renters. Or a large. And the landlords have absolutely no consideration. And to do 10 years. That's why we didn't use the program, and it is useless. And in the, all the requests, we got to have some protection for the landlords on deadbeats. It cost us a hell of a lot of money. So I think, I don't know what we're gonna do because we got, Senator Hardy saying she wants more protection for the renters. And they're very well protected. And so that has something to do with the housing stock and that and rents available. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Any other comments, information? Motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Steve. On unanimous consent, let's adjourn. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you at next month's annual meeting.
Thanks, Arabella.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.